My name is Warren, 33 years old, and I watched my entire life burn to ashes with my 2 kids clutching my hands. I sent a desperate text to my family. The kids and I are safe, but we have nowhere to go. No one responded. An hour later, my cousin Bradley posted pictures from his pool party with the caption, "Family over everything." 3 weeks later, still homeless and sleeping on my friend's couch, my phone exploded with 88 missed calls and a text from my dad, "Help. $3,900 tonight." Without hesitation, I made a decision that would change everything. Before I continue this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button and like this video if you've ever felt abandoned by the people who should have been there for you the most. Life before the fire wasn't perfect, but it was stable. I had carved out a decent existence for my 2 children, 7-year-old Sophia and 5-year-old Liam, in our modest 2-bedroom apartment on the east side of town. The divorce from Jennifer had been finalized 18 months prior, and though the custody arrangement gave me the kids Monday through Friday with Jennifer taking weekends, she had slowly reduced her time with them to just occasional Saturdays. I worked as a construction manager for Riverside Development, putting in 45 to 50 hours weekly to keep food on the table and maintain the roof over our heads. The pay wasn't amazing, but it covered our necessities with a tiny bit left over that I squirreled away for emergencies. Our apartment wasn't fancy by any means. The carpet had seen better days, the kitchen appliances belonged in a museum, and the bathroom sink dripped continuously no matter how many times I replaced the washer. But it was home. The walls were covered with Sophia's artwork and Liam's superhero posters. The living room had our worn but comfortable couch, where we'd pile together for movie nights with bowls of popcorn and dreams that seemed within reach. Our morning routine had been perfected over time. I'd wake at 5:30 to shower and prepare breakfast before getting the kids up at 6:15. Sophia was always easier to rouse than Liam, who required multiple gentle shakes and promises of chocolate milk to extract from his superhero bedding. We'd eat breakfast together, a sacred time when I'd ask about upcoming school activities or what they wanted to do over the weekend. Then it was the organized chaos of brushing teeth, finding missing shoes, and making sure homework folders were packed before dropping them at school by 7:45 and racing to the construction site by 8:15. The layoff came without warning. Riverside Development lost their main financial backer, and suddenly 20% of the workforce was cut. My supervisor, Taylor, looked genuinely pained when he delivered the news, explaining there would be 2 weeks of severance pay and that he'd write me a glowing recommendation. I maintained my composure until I reached my car, where I allowed myself 5 minutes of panic before pulling myself together. The kids didn't need to see me crumble. My relationship with my extended family had grown distant after the divorce. My father, Richard, had made it clear he thought I should have tried harder to make the marriage work despite Jennifer's infidelity. My relationship with him had always been complicated. He was the type of man who called only when he needed something, usually money, to cover gambling debts or investments that never materialized. My cousin Bradley, my aunt's son, had once been like a brother to me growing up, but success in real estate had changed him. His social media became a catalog of material possessions and shallow relationships with occasional family gatherings where everyone pretended to be closer than they actually were. The small emergency fund I had built up began evaporating as I sent out resumes and took any odd construction jobs I could find. I was determined not to let the kids feel the financial strain. When Sophia needed new shoes for school, I skipped lunch for a week to afford them. When Liam had a field trip that required a $20 fee, I sold my prized collection of vintage tools that had belonged to my grandfather. The irony doesn't escape me now that just 1 week before the fire I had sat both kids down for our seasonal safety talk. We practiced our escape route from the apartment, reviewed where to meet outside if separated, and how to call 911. Sophia had rolled her eyes, having heard it all before, but Liam had been enthusiastic, treating it like a game. "Dad, if there's a fire, I'll help Sophia get out too," he had promised with the innocent confidence of a 5-year-old. "That's good, buddy, but remember, Daddy helps both of you first. Your only job is to follow me, okay?" I'd responded, ruffling his hair. Little did I know how soon we would put that plan into action. The night before the fire had been completely ordinary. We ate spaghetti for dinner, the kids' favorite. Liam had spilled his milk twice. Sophia had proudly shown me her math test with a bright red A. circled at the top. We watched an episode of their favorite cartoon before baths and bedtime stories. I kissed them both goodnight, checked that the front door was locked, and collapsed onto the couch to search for job listings until my eyes grew heavy. It was the last normal night we would have for a very long time. The smoke alarm's piercing wail jolted me from a deep sleep at 2:14 in the morning. For a split second, my groggy mind thought it was my alarm clock, but the acrid smell of smoke instantly cleared the fog of sleep. I launched from the couch where I'd fallen asleep watching job search videos, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Sophia, Liam," I screamed, already moving toward their shared bedroom. The hallway was hazy with smoke that seemed to be pouring from the building's shared wall with the apartment next door. The doorknob to the kids' room was warm, but not hot. I flung it open to find both children already sitting up in bed, confusion and fear etched on their small faces. Daddy Liam's voice trembled. "Is it a real fire?" "Yes, buddy. We need to go right now. Remember our plan." I kept my voice as steady as possible while adrenaline surged through my system. I grabbed Sophia's hand and directed her to hold on to Liam, then snatched the blanket from her bed to wrap around them. "Stay low, cover your mouths, and follow me," I instructed, demonstrating by crouching down. The smoke was thickening rapidly, making my eyes water and throat burn. We moved as quickly as possible through the apartment toward our front door. The heat was intensifying, and I could hear the ominous crackling of flames from somewhere in the walls. The wooden floor was hot beneath my bare feet as we reached the front door. I pressed my palm against it, cool enough to touch. With a prayer of thanks, I unlocked it, and we spilled out into the hallway. The scene was chaos. Other residents were emerging from their apartments, some coughing, others shouting for family members. The building's alarm system was now blaring, adding to the disorientation. "Stay with me," I ordered, gripping the children's hands tightly as we joined the stream of people heading toward the stairwell. The descent was tense and slow, with frightened neighbors pushing forward while trying not to trample those ahead. Liam stumbled on the second-floor landing, and I swept him up into my arms without breaking stride, Sophia clutching the back of my t-shirt. When we finally burst through the building's front doors into the cool night air, I gulped it gratefully into my burning lungs. I led the kids across the parking lot to the designated meeting spot we had practiced, counting at least a dozen other residents huddled in shock. From this vantage point, we watched in horrified silence as flames erupted from the third-floor windows, directly below our fourth-floor apartment. Orange light danced menacingly against the night sky, illuminating the faces of my neighbors with an otherworldly glow. Sophia began to sob quietly, and Liam stood frozen, his small hand gripping mine with surprising strength. "It's okay," I whispered, kneeling to pull them both into my arms. "We're safe. That's all that matters." But even as I spoke those reassuring words, my mind was racing ahead to the grim reality. Everything we owned was in that building. Birth certificates, social security cards, my laptop with job applications, the children's baby photos, the handmade quilt from my grandmother, all of it burning before our eyes. The fire trucks arrived within minutes, their sirens wailing and lights flashing across the faces of the gathered crowd. Firefighters jumped into action, unrolling hoses and shouting commands. One firefighter, a tall man with kind eyes visible above his mask, approached our group. "Everyone accounted for from apartment 412, he asked, consulting a clipboard. "Yes, we're all here," I confirmed. "Just the three of us." He nodded. "I'm Keith. You folks sit tight. We've got paramedics coming to check everyone, especially the little ones." Keith crouched down to Sophia and Liam's level. "You two did a great job getting out safely. Your dad must have taught you well." His simple kindness brought a lump to my throat that I struggled to swallow down. The children needed me to be strong right now. As the firefighters battled the blaze, I pulled my phone from the pocket of my sweatpants. Thankfully, I had grabbed it from the coffee table out of habit when the alarm sounded. With shaking fingers, I typed out a message to our family group chat that included my father, my two uncles, my aunt, and Bradley. "Our apartment building is on fire. The kids and I are safe, but we have nowhere to go. Could someone please come get us?" I stared at the screen, waiting for the responses that surely would come flooding in. Family helps family in crisis. That's how it's supposed to work. I glanced at my children huddled together under the blanket I'd grabbed, watching with wide eyes as their home continued to burn. An hour passed. No responses. The paramedics arrived and checked us for smoke inhalation. They recommended we go to the hospital for observation, but with no health insurance since the layoff. I declined, assuring them we were breathing fine. The Red Cross disaster response team set up a table and began taking names of displaced residents. They offered vouchers for a nearby motel for 2 nights. I accepted gratefully, but knew it was merely postponing the inevitable question, where would we go after that? With the children drowsy but too wired to sleep, we walked to a 24-hour diner 2 blocks away. They shared a plate of pancakes while I made calls. The insurance company was first, only to discover that my renter's insurance had lapsed 3 weeks prior when the automatic payment failed due to insufficient funds. I had meant to pay it manually but had forgotten in the stress of job hunting. As dawn broke, casting pale light through the diner windows, I checked my phone again. Still nothing from family. But there was a notification from Instagram. Bradley had posted new photos just an hour after my desperate text. They showed a pool party at his new house, complete with a barbecue, cocktails, and smiling faces, including my father, aunt, and uncles. The caption read, "Family over everything. Sunday, fun day, with the people who matter most." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. While we sat in a diner homeless and in shock, they were celebrating together, phones undoubtedly in pockets, or on tables where my message had been received, read, and ignored. I paid for the kids' breakfast with my nearly maxed-out credit card and led them to the motel. As they finally fell asleep on the sagging mattress, I sat in a plastic chair by the window watching the sun rise on our new reality, feeling more alone than I ever had in my life. The Red Cross motel voucher bought us 2 nights of shelter, but reality came knocking persistently on the 3rd morning. Sophia and Liam remained remarkably resilient, treating our situation like an unexpected vacation, though I caught moments when their smiles faltered, especially when Sophia realized her treasured stuffed rabbit, to a gift from her grandmother before she passed, was gone forever. "When can we go home?" Daddy Liam asked over the complimentary continental breakfast chocolate milk, leaving a mustache on his upper lip. I swallowed hard before answering. "Our apartment is gone, buddy. We need to find a new home." His small face scrunched in confusion. "But where will we go today?" That question haunted me as I packed our meager possessions, just the clothes on our backs and the emergency toiletries provided by the Red Cross. I had exactly $322 in my checking account, a credit card with a remaining available balance of $400 and no income. Our first stop was the apartment building, where a meeting had been called for all residents. The landlord, Raymond, a perpetually harried man with thinning hair and a permanent scowl, addressed the crowd gathered in the parking lot. "The fire marshal has determined the cause was electrical wiring in the east wall," Raymond announced, reading from a clipboard. "The building is condemned until repairs can be made, which could take 6 to 8 months. Your security deposits will be applied to your final month's rent, as per your lease agreements." A chorus of angry voices rose from the crowd. A security deposit wasn't going to help anyone find new housing. I raised my hand. "What about our belongings? Can we retrieve anything?" Raymond sighed as if I'd asked an unreasonable question. "The 4th floor is completely destroyed. 3rd floor has severe water damage. 1st and 2nd floors might have salvageable items, but the structure isn't safe yet. We'll notify you when retrieval might be possible." So that was that. Everything we owned was either burned, water damaged, or inaccessible. I guided the children away from the building before they could ask more questions. Next, we visited the local Red Cross office, where a social worker named Andrea helped us apply for emergency assistance. "Do you have family you can stay with temporarily?" Andrea asked kindly, her eyes taking in the children's smoke-scented clothes. "No," I replied flatly, not wanting to elaborate on the pool party betrayal. "Friends, perhaps." I hesitated. There was Marcus, my closest friend from the construction company. We'd worked together for 5 years before the layoffs. He lived in a 1-bedroom apartment across town. It was a long shot, but I was running out of options. While Andrea helped us complete paperwork for emergency funds that would take days to process, I texted Marcus. His response was immediate. "Of course, man. It's not much, but you guys can crash here until you figure things out." Relief flooded through me. At least we wouldn't be sleeping in our car tonight. Before heading to Marcus's place, I made one more attempt to reach family. I called my father directly. "Richard speaking," he answered gruffly. "Dad, it's Warren. Did you get my message about the fire?" A pause. "Yeah, I saw something. You guys okay?" "We're alive, but we lost everything. We need a place to stay." Another longer pause. "Well, son, you know I'd help if I could, but my place is being renovated. Contractors everywhere. Not safe for the kids." I closed my eyes, picturing him lounging by Bradley's pool just yesterday. "What about Aunt Linda or Uncle Steve?" "They're dealing with some things right now. Not a good time." His voice had the artificial concern of someone checking boxes on a form. "Listen, I gotta run. Keep me posted, okay?" The call ended before I could respond. Next, I tried Bradley directly. "Warren, man, I heard about the fire. That's rough." His voice sounded genuinely concerned, which made the next part even more confusing. "We need help, Bradley. Somewhere to stay for a few weeks." "Ah, geez, I wish you'd called yesterday. We just rented out our guest room to Melanie's cousin, and the basement's being remodeled." His excuses tumbled out rapidly. "But hey, I could probably loan you a couple $100 if that helps." I declined the offer, pride being the one thing I still possessed, and ended the call. Marcus's apartment was a third-floor walk-up in a building that had seen better decades. But it was clean, and most importantly, not on fire. He greeted us with awkward hugs, and showed the kids his collection of action figures to break the ice. "The couch pulls out," he explained, demonstrating the mechanism. "It's not the Ritz, but it's yours as long as you need it." That first night after the kids were asleep on the pull-out couch, Marcus and I sat at his small kitchen table, voices lowered. "I can't believe your family bailed on you," he said, shaking his head. I showed him Bradley's Instagram post. His eyes widened. "That's cold, man. Ice cold." "They've always been like this," I admitted. "I just never needed them this badly before, so it was easy to ignore." The next morning, I began the process of rebuilding our lives. I updated our address with the children's school, explaining our situation to the administration. The guidance counselor, Mrs. Patterson, promised to keep an eye on them and offered donated clothes from the school's emergency closet. I spent hours on the phone with the insurance company, who eventually agreed to a minimal payout due to policy circumstances. It wouldn't arrive for weeks. Days stretched into a week, then two. I picked up small construction jobs through former contacts, earning just enough to contribute to Marcus's grocery bill and keep gas in my car. Every night I searched apartment listings, finding nothing we could afford. Meanwhile, my family's social media continued to flaunt their comfortable lives. Aunt Linda posted about donating to a homeless shelter. "So important to help those in need," she wrote beneath a photo of herself handing over a bag of clothes. Uncle Steve shared a meme about the importance of family support. My father posted nothing. He rarely did, but Bradley tagged him in photos from a fishing trip. "Family bonding time with the old man." The caption read, showing them with expensive gear on a boat that probably cost more than a year's rent. The children adapted as best they could, but signs of strain appeared. Sophia's teacher called to say she'd fallen asleep in class twice that week. Liam had a meltdown when he couldn't find his favorite toy car, only to remember it had burned in the fire. Each night they would squeeze onto the pull-out couch, while I made a pallet on the floor beside them, whispering reassurances. I wasn't sure I believed myself. Marcus was patient, but I could sense his growing unease with our presence. His one-bedroom apartment wasn't designed for 4 people. His morning routine was disrupted by children preparing for school. His evenings, once spent in solitary relaxation, now featured Disney movies and children's bedtime routines. By the 3rd week, I was barely holding it together. My credit card had maxed out on necessities like school supplies and clothes for the kids. The small jobs barely covered food and gas. I'd applied for every construction position within 50 miles but had received only 2 interviews, both ending with "we'll call you." I was living a double life, cheerful, optimistic dad by day, panicked, sleepless job, hunter by night. My reflection in Marcus's bathroom mirror showed a man I barely recognized, hollow-eyed, unshaven, with new lines etched around my mouth from forced smiles and swallowed words. That's when my phone sitting on Marcus's kitchen counter, while I prepared the kids' lunch, began vibrating uncontrollably. After weeks of silence from family, suddenly there were 88 missed calls from my father, followed by a text that made my blood run cold. Help. 3,900 tonight. Dangerous people. Will explain later. 2.5 weeks of living on Marcus's pull-out couch had taught me many things: how to shower in under 3 minutes to preserve hot water, how to prepare meals for 3 people on a hot plate without disturbing my sleeping friend, and most importantly, how thin the veneer of normality I presented to my children actually was. Marcus was trying his best to be accommodating, but the strain showed in small ways: the tightness around his eyes when he came home to find toys scattered across his living room, or the way he would occasionally lock himself in a bedroom for an hour of quiet time. I couldn't blame him. His bachelor pad had transformed overnight into a family crash pad with children's shoes by the door and Sophia's homework spread across his coffee table. "How's the job hunt going?" he asked one evening, his voice casual, but his eyes communicating the unspoken question: "When will you find your own place?" "I had an interview at Davidson Construction yesterday," I told him, lowering my voice so the kids wouldn't hear. "The pay is decent, but about 15% less than I was making before. Enough for an apartment." I shook my head. "Not in this market. Everything affordable has a 6-month waiting list." Marcus nodded, disappointment poorly concealed. "You'll figure it out, man. I know you will." The children were struggling in their own ways. Sophia, normally talkative and confident, had become withdrawn at school. Her teacher emailed me expressing concern about her participation in class. "She seems distracted and anxious," the email read. "Is everything okay at home?" Home. The word felt like a cruel joke. Liam had started wetting the bed, or rather the pull-out couch, which created a whole new set of challenges in our cramped living situation. Each accident required stripping the sheets in the middle of the night, hand-washing them in the bathroom sink, and hanging them to dry over the shower curtain rod, all while trying not to wake Marcus or Sophia. One particular morning, after a night of virtually no sleep due to one of Liam's episodes, I received a call from the school counselor, Mrs. Rivera. "Mr. Matthews, I've been speaking with both your children's teachers, and I'm concerned," she began. "They're showing signs of trauma response. Liam had a panic attack during the fire drill yesterday, and Sophia has been drawing some concerning pictures during art therapy." My chest tightened. "What kind of pictures?" "Dark houses with flames. People standing outside looking sad. One drawing showed 3 stick figures sleeping in a car." I closed my eyes, leaning against the wall of the laundromat where I was washing our clothes. "I'm doing my best," I said, hating how defensive I sounded. "We're in a temporary situation after the fire." "I understand," Mrs. Rivera's voice softened. "We want to help. The school has resources for families in crisis. Would you be willing to come in for a meeting?" I agreed, though the thought of adding one more appointment to my juggling act made my stomach churn. Every day was a carefully orchestrated schedule of dropping the kids at school, working whatever construction gig I could find, picking them up, preparing dinner in Marcus's tiny kitchen, helping with homework, and then staying up late, applying for jobs and apartments. The insurance company finally called with their decision, a payout of $2,800 for our belongings. The representative explained this was based on depreciated value, not replacement costs, since my policy had lapsed and been reinstated after missing just one payment. It felt like highway robbery, but I had no energy to fight. "When will the funds be available?" I asked. 7 to 10 business days, came the reply. I thanked her with forced politeness and hung up. $2,800 wouldn't even cover first and last month's rent on a decent 2-bedroom apartment, let alone replace everything we'd lost. But it was something, a life raft in an ocean of uncertainty. That afternoon I visited 3 apartment complexes, each one confirming what I already knew without proof of income: 3 times the monthly rent. No landlord would consider my application. The cheapest 2-bedroom available was still $975 monthly, requiring an income I couldn't prove and a security deposit I didn't have. The weight of our situation pressed down on me as I drove to pick up the kids. At a red light, I made the mistake of checking social media. My cousin Bradley had posted photos of his new boat with the caption, "Work hard, play harder, blessed family time." The comments section was filled with congratulations, including one from my father. "Proud of you, son. That's how it's done." The light turned green, but I sat frozen, staring at my phone until a horn blared behind me. The contrast between Bradley's reality and mine felt surreal. While I was counting quarters for laundry and rationing food to stretch our budget, my family was celebrating luxury purchases and completely ignoring our plight. That evening, after the kids were asleep, I sat on Marcus's balcony, allowing myself a rare moment of breakdown. Silent tears tracked down my face as I considered our options, each one more desperate than the last. Could we live in my car until the insurance money came through? Would a shelter be better for the kids than continuing to impose on Marcus? Should I swallow my pride and beg my ex-wife to take the children temporarily, even though she'd made it clear her new boyfriend didn't want them around? My deteriorating physical condition wasn't helping matters. Stress had manifested as persistent headaches and insomnia. I'd lost 12 pounds in 3 weeks, my clothes hanging loose on my frame. The manual labor jobs I was picking up left my body aching, unused to such constant physical strain after years in management. A small victory came the next day when I received a call from Wellington Builders offering me steady part-time work, 25 hours weekly at $18 per hour. It wasn't enough for an apartment, but it would help us tread water while I continued searching for full-time employment. That night, Sophia asked the question, "I'd been dreading, Dad, when can we go home?" "I miss my room." I pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair. "We're going to get a new home soon, sweetheart. One that's even better than before. Will it have my own room? I'm tired of sharing the couch with Liam. He kicks in his sleep." "I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen," I promised, careful not to make guarantees I couldn't keep. Later, sitting in my car in the parking lot of a 24-hour grocery store, I finally allowed myself to fully break down. The sobs came from deep within my body, shaking with the force of emotions I'd been suppressing for weeks. I pounded the steering wheel in frustration, cursing the faulty wiring that had started the fire, the family that had abandoned us, and my own inability to fix our situation faster. When the storm passed, I wiped my face, took a deep breath, and drove back to Marcus's apartment where my children slept, believing their father could solve any problem, fix any crisis. I couldn't let them down no matter what it took. By the 23rd day after the fire, our situation had reached a critical juncture. That morning, Marcus had made coffee and sat across from me at his small kitchen table while the kids were getting dressed. "Warren," he began, his voice, "careful, you know. You guys can stay as long as you need to, but have you thought about other options? Maybe reaching out to Jennifer again?" Though his tone was gentle, the message was clear. Our welcome was wearing thin. I couldn't blame him. His generosity had already extended far beyond what most friends would offer. "I have that interview today at Grayson Construction," I told him. "If it goes well, we might be able to get our own place by the end of the month." Marcus nodded, but his expression remained doubtful. We both knew the reality of the housing market and my financial situation. After dropping the kids at school, I returned to the apartment to prepare for my interview. My phone had been unusually busy that morning, buzzing with calls from debt collectors. The credit card company wanted payment. The medical billing office from our last pediatrician visit was threatening collections. Each voicemail added another brick to the wall of anxiety closing in around me. I dressed in my only presentable outfit, slacks, and a button-down shirt I'd purchased from a thrift store with Marcus's help. They didn't fit perfectly, but they were clean and professional enough for a construction management interview. Before leaving, I checked my email to find a message from the Public Housing Authority regarding my emergency application. "After reviewing your documentation, we regret to inform you that your application cannot be processed due to incomplete paperwork. Your income verification forms are missing required signatures." Another door closed. I had completed those forms at 2 in the morning, after a 14-hour day, my eyes burning with exhaustion. Apparently, I'd missed a signature line somewhere in the 20-page document. The thought of sleeping in my car with the children was becoming less abstract and more like an imminent reality. I could almost visualize it. Sophia and Liam curled up in the back seat under blankets, asking questions I couldn't answer while I reclined uncomfortably in the driver's seat, one eye open for security guards who might chase us from whatever parking lot we found. With these thoughts weighing heavily, I drove to Grayson Construction for my interview. The company had a solid reputation, and the position was for a site manager overseeing residential projects, exactly my area of expertise. The starting salary mentioned in the job posting would be tight, but potentially enough for a small 2-bedroom apartment in one of the outlying suburbs. Harold Grayson himself conducted the interview, a gruff man in his 60s, with calloused hands and keen eyes that missed nothing. "Your experience is impressive," he noted, reviewing my resume. "Why'd you leave Riverside?" "Layoffs due to lost financing," I explained. 20% of the workforce was cut. He nodded. "Heard about that. Tough break." He continued asking detailed questions about my management style, technical knowledge, and availability. The interview stretched from the scheduled 30 minutes to nearly an hour, a promising sign. "One more thing," Harold said as we were wrapping up. "This position requires occasional weekend work when we're pushing to meet deadlines. Would that be a problem with your kids?" I hesitated, calculating childcare costs against the potential salary. "No, sir, I can make arrangements." "Good man. We'll be making our decision by Friday. Expect a call either way." I thanked him and walked out feeling cautiously optimistic. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was the best prospect I'd had since the fire. A small flame of hope flickered to life as I headed to my car. That flame was immediately doused when I checked my phone. During the interview, my father had called 88 times in the span of 40 minutes. 88 missed calls followed by a text message that made my stomach drop. "Help. 29 censored tonight. Dangerous people, will explain later." I sat in my car staring at those words until they blurred. $3,900, tonight, after weeks of silence, after the pool party, after ignoring our homelessness. Now he needed me. The absurdity of it was almost laughable. I called him back immediately, my hands shaking with a combination of anger and worry. "Dad, what's going on?" "Warren, thank God." His voice was pitched higher than normal, edged with panic. "I need your help, son. I got in over my head with some people. They're threatening to break my legs if I don't pay by midnight." "What kind of people?" I demanded. "Just some guys I owe money to. From cards." Cards meant poker. Again. "Why 3,900 specifically?" "It's 3,000 original debt plus interest. They're not patient people, Warren." I leaned my forehead against the steering wheel. "Dad, I don't have that kind of money. We lost everything in the fire. Remember? The fire you never asked about, the one that left your grandchildren homeless." A pause. I know. I should have called sooner. Things have been complicated. But Warren, these guys are serious. They know where I live. They mentioned knowing about you, and the kids too." A cold feeling spread through my chest. "You told gambling debts about your grandchildren." "Not intentionally. It came up in conversation. Look, can you help me or not? The insurance must have paid you something." "The insurance money. The $2,800 that was supposed to help us rebuild our lives. Money for a security deposit on an apartment for replacing the children's clothes and school books for getting back on our feet." "I'll think about it," I said finally. "I need to figure some things out." "There's no time to think." His voice rose. "They're coming at midnight." "I'll call you back," I said firmly, and ended the call. I sat in the parking lot for a long time, my mind racing. The moral dilemma tore at me from all directions. My father had abandoned us in our time of need, yet he was still my father. He'd made countless poor decisions, yet he was potentially in physical danger. The money would set our recovery back by months. Yet could I live with myself if something happened to him? More importantly, could I justify using the insurance money, meant to rebuild my children's stability, to bail out a man who couldn't even be bothered to offer us a couch to sleep on? As I wrestled with these questions, my phone buzzed with a text from my cousin Bradley. "Hey, 'cause hope things are looking up for you guys. Remember, family sticks together through thick and thin." The hypocrisy was the final straw. 3 weeks of abandonment followed by hollow platitudes while my father demanded our rebuilding money to cover his gambling debts. Something inside me shifted. This wasn't just about money. It was about breaking a cycle of toxic relationships and setting an example for my children about self-respect and healthy boundaries. With newfound clarity, I started the car and drove to the bank where the insurance check had been deposited 3 days earlier. I withdrew the full amount in cash, feeling the weight of the bills in my hand. Then I drove to the address my father had texted, a dingy sports bar on the edge of town. Richard sat hunched at a corner table nursing a beer, his eyes darting nervously toward the door each time it opened. He looked older than his 59 years, the consequences of decades of poor choices etched into his face. Warren relief flooded his features as I approached. "You came." I sat across from him, placing my hands flat on the table. "Before I give you a penny, I want the truth. All of it." My father's story emerged in fragments. He'd been gambling again, despite promises to stop, had borrowed money from people connected to a local bookie, had lost everything trying to win it back, and was now 3 months behind on payments. "They said they're done waiting," he finished, glancing around nervously. "They know about my job, my apartment, even mentioned knowing about you and the kids." "And where exactly were you planning to get this money if I hadn't answered?" I asked. He looked away. "I've been asking around. No one else could help." "You mean no one else would help?" I corrected. "Just like no one would help us after the fire." "That was different," he protested weakly. "Everyone had their reasons. While you were all at Bradley's pool party, the one he posted on Instagram an hour after I texted that we were homeless, Richard had the decency to look ashamed. "Warren, I'm sorry about that. Really. But right now I'm in serious trouble." I reached into my jacket and placed the stack of bills on the table, watching his eyes widen. "This is $2,800, I said quietly. "It's every penny of the insurance payment for everything we lost, everything my children owned. Their clothes, their toys, their sense of security." He reached for the money, but I placed my hand over it. "I'll give you this on one condition." I continued, meeting his gaze steadily. "After today, we're done. No more calls for money, no more emergencies, no more pretending to be family when it's convenient." "What are you saying?" His voice was barely audible. "I'm saying I'll help you this one last time, but then I'm setting boundaries. My children deserve better than to watch their father bail out people who couldn't be bothered to offer them a place to sleep when they were homeless." He swallowed hard. "You don't mean that. We're family." "Family helps each other," I replied, my voice firm. "Family shows up when someone's house burns down. Family offers more than Instagram platitudes about sticking together." After a long moment, he nodded. "Okay, I understand." I slid the money across the table. "This isn't enough for the full amount. You'll need to figure out the rest." "I will," he promised. "And Warren, thank you." I stood up, feeling strangely lighter, despite the financial setback. "Goodbye, Dad." As I walked out of the bar, I knew I had just changed the course of our family dynamic forever. The money was gone, but in its place was something more valuable, the beginning of self-respect and the breaking of a toxic cycle. My children would learn from this, not that family can abandon you in crisis, but that you can choose to set healthy boundaries even with those you love. The return to Marcus's apartment that evening felt different. Though our financial situation had worsened with the loss of the insurance money, a weight had lifted from my shoulders. For the first time since the fire, I felt in control of something, even if it was just the decision to break free from toxic relationships. Marcus noticed the change immediately. "You seem different. Good interview." "The interview went well." I nodded, but that's not it. "I gave my dad the insurance money." His eyebrows shot up. "You what? Why would you do that after everything?" As I explained the situation, Marcus's expression shifted from shock to understanding. "So you're cutting ties with them?" he asked when I finished. "Setting boundaries," I corrected. "I can't cut them out completely for the kids' sake, but I'm done being the family ATM or pretending we're close when we're not." That night, after tucking the children into their makeshift bed on the pull-out couch, I checked my email one last time. There, amid the usual job notifications and bills, was a message from Harold Grayson. "Warren, I was impressed with your interview today. We'd like to offer you the position of site manager starting Monday. Salary $62,000 annually, with benefits after 90 days. Please call to discuss details. I stared at the screen, hardly daring to believe it. The salary was actually higher than the job posting had indicated, enough to rent a modest apartment and slowly rebuild our lives. I immediately called and accepted the position, my voice steady, despite the emotions threatening to overwhelm me. The next morning brought another surprise. While scrolling through apartment listings during breakfast, I found a 2-bedroom unit in a decent neighborhood for $890 monthly, significantly below market rate. The catch: it needed a $1,500 security deposit plus first month's rent money I no longer had after helping my father. I might have found a place, I told Marcus, showing him the listing, but the timing's off. I won't have enough for the deposit until I get my first paycheck. Marcus studied the listing. What if I loan you the deposit money? You can pay me back when you're on your feet. The offer stunned me. Marcus, you've already done so much. I can't ask for more. You're not asking, I'm offering, he replied firmly. Besides, I miss walking around my apartment in my underwear. His joke broke the tension, and I found myself laughing for what felt like the first time in weeks. I'll pay you back every penny, I promise. That afternoon I took the kids to see the apartment. It was nothing fancy, basic appliances, worn carpet, and walls that needed fresh paint, but it was clean, safe, and most importantly, ours. Sophia immediately claimed the smaller bedroom, while Liam protested that they should switch every month to be fair. As I completed the rental application, my phone buzzed with a notification. Bradley had posted another family gathering photo with the caption, "Sunday dinner with the fam." Nothing more important than supporting each other through life's challenges. Family first. Something snapped inside me. Before I could reconsider, I opened my rarely used social media account and typed, "Reality check." 3 weeks ago, our apartment burned down. My kids and I lost everything. I texted family for help and got silence. An hour later, my cousin posted pool party photos with "family over everything." Today, we're still homeless, sleeping on a friend's couch while family posts about supporting each other. The hypocrisy is stunning. True family isn't Instagram captions. It's showing up when it matters. I hit post without hesitation, then returned to my apartment application. What happened next was unexpected. Within hours, my post had been shared hundreds of times beyond my small network. Local community groups picked it up, and by evening a reporter from the city newspaper had messaged me, asking to talk about fire safety in older apartment buildings. The interview focused primarily on the building's electrical issues and the lack of proper inspections, but it also touched on our personal struggle. The reporter, Emma Winters, seemed particularly moved by the children's resilience. "Would you be willing to let us run a feature on your family's recovery process?" she asked. "There are important issues here about emergency housing, community support, and building safety regulations." I hesitated, uncomfortable with the attention, but recognizing the potential to help others. If it might prevent another family from going through this, then yes. The article ran 2 days later, accompanied by a photo of the children and me standing outside our burned apartment building. The headline read, "Family Rebuilds After Fire Reveals Safety Violations and Community Gaps." The response was immediate and overwhelming, the newspaper's online comments section filled with offers of help. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from strangers wanting to donate furniture, clothes, and household items. The local firefighters association reached out about a program that provided beds for children displaced by fires. My first instinct was to decline. Pride had been my companion through this ordeal, the one thing I could cling to when everything else was stripped away. But looking at my children, I realized that pride wouldn't give them beds to sleep in or books to read. "Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is accept help," Marcus said when I expressed my reservations. "It's not charity, it's community." His words resonated, and I began accepting the offers that would most benefit the children. A local furniture store donated bunk beds. A bookstore sent boxes of children's books. A department store provided gift cards for new clothes. Meanwhile, my original social media post continued to circulate. Bradley eventually saw it and called his voice tight with anger and embarrassment. "Why would you air family business like that?" he demanded. "It wasn't family business," I replied calmly. "It was the truth. People are messaging me saying terrible things. My reputation, my children were homeless, Bradley. They lost everything. Not one family member offered a bedroom, a couch, even a meal. You were all too busy taking pool party photos and posting about family over everything." A long silence followed. "I didn't realize how bad it was," he finally said, his voice smaller. "You didn't ask." After another pause, he offered, "What can I do now to help?" "Nothing," I answered honestly. "We're finding our way forward, but not because of family, because of strangers and one true friend who showed up when it mattered." The day before starting my new job, I received an unexpected call from a man named Garrett Fleming, the owner of a high-end residential construction company. "I read about your situation," he began, "and looked into your work history. Riverside speaks highly of you. I'd like to discuss a position with my company." I explained that I'd already accepted a job with Grayson Construction. "With all due respect to Harold," Garrett replied, "I can offer you 78,000 plus benefits starting immediately. Project manager for our new development. The catch is, we need someone who can start tomorrow." The offer was significantly better than Grayson's, enough to completely change our financial trajectory. After an apologetic call to Harold explaining the situation, I accepted Garrett's offer. That weekend, with Marcus's loan and my signing bonus from Fleming Construction, we moved into our new apartment. Community donations had provided most of the essentials: beds, a dining table, cookware, and clothes for the children. It wasn't fancy, but seeing Sophia and Liam explore their rooms with excitement made it feel like a palace. That first night in our own space after the children were asleep in real beds for the first time in nearly a month, I stood in our sparse living room and allowed myself to feel the full weight of all that had happened. The terror of the fire, the abandonment, the struggle, the unexpected kindness of strangers, the boundaries set with toxic family, the beginning of something new. I opened the sliding glass door to our small balcony and stepped outside, breathing deeply of the night air. From this vantage point, I could see the lights of the city stretching into the distance, thousands of homes with thousands of stories unfolding behind illuminated windows. Somewhere out there was the burned shell of our former apartment. Somewhere else was my father dealing with the consequences of his choices. And here, in this modest apartment, was the beginning of our rebuilt life. For the first time since the fire, I felt a genuine sense of hope. Not the desperate hope that had sustained me through our weeks of homelessness, but a calm, steady belief that we would be okay. Different, perhaps, changed by what we'd experienced, but ultimately, stronger. 6 months after the fire, our lives had transformed in ways I never could have predicted during those dark days on Marcus's pull-out couch. The apartment had become a true home with photographs on the walls, new ones capturing our fresh start, colorful rugs, covering the worn carpet and the comfortable clutter of a family living fully. My position at Fleming Construction had proven to be more than just a job. It was a career advancement that would have taken years to achieve otherwise. Garrett had become not just a boss but a mentor, teaching me aspects of the business I'd never been exposed to before. "You have a good eye for detail," he commented one afternoon as we toured a nearly completed luxury home. "And the crew respects you. That combination is rare." The children had settled into a new routine. Therapy had helped them process the trauma of the fire and homelessness. Sophia's nightmares had subsided, and Liam no longer froze at the sound of sirens. Their resilience continually amazed me. One of my first priorities upon moving into the apartment had been establishing comprehensive safety measures. We had smoke detectors in every room, carbon monoxide detectors, fire extinguishers, and an escape ladder stored under each child's bed. We practiced our emergency plan monthly, and while the children sometimes rolled their eyes at my insistence, they participated without complaint. "Dad, if there's a fire, I grab my go bag and meet you at the big tree," Liam would recite dutifully. No stopping for toys. Each child had a waterproof bag containing a change of clothes, a small comfort item, a flashlight, and a laminated card with important contact information. These bags hung on hooks by their bedroom doors, constant reminders of our experience but also symbols of our preparedness. Our circle of support had expanded beyond what I could have imagined. Marcus remained a constant presence, joining us for dinner every Sunday night. Through a parent support group suggested by the children's therapist, I'd met other single parents navigating their own challenges. These new friends understood the daily struggle in ways my biological family never had. Together we formed a network of practical support, trading childcare, sharing resources, celebrating victories both large and small. When Sophia won her school spelling bee, 6 adults cheered from the audience. When Liam scored his first soccer goal, the sidelines erupted with familiar voices. This chosen family filled the void left by the relatives who had proven themselves unworthy of the title. It wasn't perfect, nothing is, but it was genuine, built on mutual respect and actual support rather than empty social media platitudes. Speaking of family, my father had attempted to contact me several times in the months following our confrontation at the sports bar. His texts followed a predictable pattern, casual greetings that evolved into thinly veiled requests for money. Each time I responded with a simple reminder of our agreement. "I hope you're well, Dad, but as we discussed, I can't provide financial assistance anymore." After the third such exchange, his messages stopped entirely. According to my aunt, who had reached out with a half-hearted apology after my social media post went viral, he had moved in with Uncle Steve temporarily before finding a room to rent from a coworker. Whether he had resolved his gambling debts or simply kicked the can further down the road, I didn't know. And for the first time in my adult life, I realized it wasn't my responsibility to know. The boundaries I had established felt like guardrails on a mountain road, not constraining but protecting. They created space for what mattered most, my children's well-being and our collective future. That protection was tested 4 months after the fire, when my phone displayed my father's number late one evening. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Warren." Thank God his voice had the familiar, desperate edge. "I need your help. Just a small loan until payday. $700. Medical emergency." I closed my eyes, feeling the old pull of obligation. What kind of medical emergency? "Dental work. Abscessed tooth. The pain is unbearable." "Have you tried the county dental clinic? They offer services on a sliding scale." A pause. "They have a waiting list." "Then I suggest you get on it," I replied evenly. "I'm sorry you're in pain, but I can't send money." "Warren, please. I'm your father." "Yes, you are. And I'm a father too. That's why I need to prioritize my children's security." After he hung up, I sat on our balcony watching the sunset and reflecting on how different my response had been from just months earlier. The guilt that would have consumed me before was now just a faint echo. In its place was the quiet certainty that I was breaking a generational cycle of toxic dependency. My cousin Bradley had made his own attempt at reconciliation, sending an elaborate gift basket after the newspaper article appeared. The attached card read, "Family should stick together. Sorry we weren't there for you." I returned the basket with a note. "Apology accepted, but trust is rebuilt through actions, not gifts." 2 weeks later, he invited us to a barbecue at his home, the first direct invitation in years. After careful consideration, I accepted, bringing the children for a brief appearance. The visit was cordial, but distant, like the first diplomatic meeting between nations with a complicated history. "Your place looks nice," Bradley commented awkwardly as he walked us to our car afterward. "Maybe I could stop by sometime, see how you've settled in." "Maybe," I replied, neither committing nor refusing. "We'll see." This measured reintegration felt right, allowing space for potential growth while maintaining firm boundaries. The children deserved to know their extended family, but only in contexts that were healthy and appropriate. One unexpected outcome of our experience was my involvement with a local advocacy group focused on tenant rights and building safety regulations. The newspaper article had connected me with other families who had experienced similar disasters due to neglected maintenance or safety violations. Together, we were working to strengthen inspection requirements and emergency housing resources in our city. Your story made a difference. Andrea, the Red Cross social worker who had helped us initially, told me when our paths crossed at a community meeting. The city council is finally reviewing the building code enforcement procedures. I never intended to become an activist, I admitted. She smiled. Few people do. Most are just trying to prevent others from experiencing what they went through. As the 6-month anniversary of the fire approached, I found myself reflecting on everything we had lost and gained. The material possessions were largely replaced, though certain irreplaceable items, my grandmother's quilt, the children's baby books, photographs from their early years, remained gone forever. But the intangible losses and gains were more significant. We had lost the illusion of family solidarity, the comfort of believing blood relatives would show up in a crisis. We had gained a more authentic understanding of what family truly means, people who offer support without conditions, who show up when needed most, who put actions above social media platitudes. We had lost our sense of security temporarily, but gained a deeper appreciation for what truly provides safety, community resilience, and the strength to set healthy boundaries. One evening, as I helped Sophia with her homework while dinner simmered on the stove, she looked up suddenly with the directness that only children can master. "Dad, are we rich now?" The question startled me. "No, sweetheart. We're comfortable but not rich. Why do you ask?" She considered this thoughtfully. "Because we have everything we need. And Marcus says that's what being rich really means." Her simple wisdom brought a lump to my throat. "Marcus is pretty smart, isn't he? Plus," she added pragmatically, "you don't cry in the car anymore. I used to hear you sometimes when you thought we were asleep." I set down the pencil I'd been holding, moved by her perception and the reminder of how far we had come. "You're right. Things were really hard for a while, but they're better now. Because we have our own family." Liam piped up from where he was building with blocks on the floor. "Not the ones who didn't help us, but the ones who did." Out of the mouths of babes comes wisdom that adults spend years trying to grasp. My children had already internalized the lesson that had taken me 33 years, and a catastrophe to learn family is defined by actions, not blood, by presence, not promises, by support freely given, not reluctantly extracted. As we sat down to dinner that night, I looked at their faces across our second-hand table in our modest apartment and felt a fullness that had nothing to do with material success. We had lost a home but built something more valuable, the knowledge that our worth isn't determined by others' treatment of us, and that true connections are formed through adversity, not convenience. The fire had burned away more than our possessions. It had consumed illusions and pretenses, leaving behind the essential truth that resilience isn't about never falling, it's about who helps you stand again and learning to be that person for others. Have you ever had to redefine what family means to you? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more journeys of resilience and recovery. And remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is set boundaries with those who hurt you and open your heart to those who truly care. Thank you for listening, and may you find your own chosen family who stands by you when it matters most.